Hey, this is Kamori, and for this week, we're going to be talking about needles. Your basic needle anatomy is you have a point at one end, and then you have a hole at the other. This is called the eye, and that's where the thread goes through. Needles are available in a variety of different sizes and diameters. When starting off, it's a good idea to get a package kind of like this, where you have a variety of different sizes that you can play around with and see what you personally like best. Personally, I prefer the smaller, thinner needles, but that's because I have a tendency to do beading on my projects. One thing to keep in mind is that the bigger the diameter, the bigger the hole that's going to be left in the fabric. So if you're going to be using a more delicate fabric, for example, organza or satin, you're going to want a needle that's a bit thinner and isn't going to leave as much of a hole in the fabric. The other type of needle that you use for cosplay sewing are sewing machine needles. Sewing machine needles are a little bit different than hand sewing needles. You'll notice that the eye is closer to the point. This is so that you can have the rest of the needle recessed up into the machine and gives it more stability. You'll also notice that the end of the needle is a little bit rounded and then one side is flat. The flat side will face away from you when it goes into the machine. When you're starting off, there are a whole bunch of different sewing machine needles that are available out there. But when you're starting, a good place to go are three basic kinds. The first is a universal needle. Like the name suggests, it's a pretty universal needle. You can use it for pretty much any beginner type project. The second is a microtex needle. These needles are thinner, sharper, and less likely to snag at the fabric, and they're good for using on the fabrics mentioned earlier, satin and organza. The last type of needle is a ballpoint needle. These have a rounded edge and are good for use on stretch fabrics, for example, a stretch knit. Personally, I've also found that when sewing the stretch fabrics with these, it makes your machine a lot less likely to skip stitches, which is really good. If you have any suggestions for videos you'd like to see, or other subjects you'd like to see covered, go ahead and comment below. And if you'd like to see more weekly cosplay sewing videos, go ahead and hit subscribe.